Captain Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel New Dawn, watching the stars streak past through the main viewport. The ship had been traveling for 3 months through the Outer Rim systems, mapping new worlds and searching for signs of intelligent life. His crew of 45 humans had grown restless during the long journey, but today, everything would change. "Captain, we're picking up some strange readings," Navigator Park Mira called from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panel as she studied the data streaming across her screen. "There's a massive energy signature ahead, unlike anything in our databases." Kim Dae-ho walked over to her station and looked at the readings. The energy pattern was too organized to be natural. It pulsed with a rhythm that suggested artificial origin. "How far out are we?" "About 2 hours at current speed," Park Mira replied. "Should I prepare the crew for possible contact?" Before Kim Dae-ho could answer, Communications Officer Choi Hyejin spoke up from across the bridge. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission on multiple frequencies. It's not human in origin, but the signal is trying to establish a common communication protocol." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew this moment would come eventually, but none of them had expected it today. Kim Dae-ho felt his heart racing, but he kept his voice steady. "Let's put it through the translation matrix and see what we can make of it." The main screen flickered to life, showing a complex series of mathematical equations and simple pictographs. The alien transmission was attempting to establish basic communication using universal concepts like prime numbers and geometric shapes. Engineer Lee Sung-min joined the group gathering around the communication station. "Intelligent," Lee Sung-min said quietly. "Very intelligent. This is a sophisticated first contact protocol." Kim Dae-ho nodded. "Choi Hyejin, prepare our standard response package. Let them know we understand their signal and want to communicate." As the crew worked to establish communication, a new contact appeared on their sensors. The alien ship was enormous, at least 10 times the size of New Dawn. Its hull gleamed with a strange metallic surface that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. The vessel moved with smooth precision, positioning itself directly in front of the human ship. Within an hour, the aliens had successfully established two-way communication. The translator systems worked overtime to convert the alien language into something humans could understand. The first clear message came through with startling clarity. "Greetings, inhabitants of the small vessel, natives of the Galactic Council, protectors of peace and order in this galaxy. We welcome you to the community of civilized worlds." Kim Dae-ho straightened his uniform and stepped forward to address the communication array. "This is Captain Kim Dae-ho of the human exploration vessel New Dawn. We represent the people of Earth and our growing colonies. We are honored to meet representatives of galactic civilization." The alien response came quickly. "We are pleased to make contact with your species. I am Ambassador Veltar of the Council. We have observed your emergence from your home system and wish to offer you the benefits of membership in our galactic community." The conversation continued for several hours as both sides exchanged basic information about their respective civilizations. The aliens described the Galactic Council as a benevolent organization that had brought peace and prosperity to thousands of worlds across the galaxy. They spoke of advanced technology, instant communication across vast distances, and the end of war and conflict between species. Park Mira whispered to Kim Dae-ho during a brief pause in the conversation. "Captain, this all sounds too good to be true. Entire galaxy at peace. No conflicts between different species." Kim Dae-ho nodded slightly. He had been thinking the same thing. Throughout human history, whenever different groups met, there had always been some form of conflict or competition. The idea of perfect harmony across thousands of different species seemed impossible. Ambassador Veltar continued explaining the Council's system. "Each species that joins our community receives the gift of the Neural Integration Protocol, This simple procedure allows for instant communication with any other council member, regardless of species or location. It also ensures that all members can live together in perfect harmony. What exactly does this procedure involve? Kim Dae-ho asked. A small neural implant is placed in each individual's brain. Okay, the device connects to the council's communication network and provides access to the collective K's knowledge of all member species. It also activates the natural compliance mechanisms that exist in all intelligent life. Choi Hai-jin looked confused. Compliance mechanisms. All sentient species possess biological limitations that prevent them from causing harm to other council members or disobeying direct orders from council representatives. These natural safeguards ensure peaceful coexistence. Your species surely has similar protective measures built into your biology. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Lee Seung-min spoke up. What if a species doesn't have these biological limitations? Ambassador Veltar's translated voice carried what seemed like amusement. That is impossible. All intelligent life evolves with these necessary restrictions. Without them, a species would destroy itself long before achieving space travel. The fact that you have reached this level of development proves that you possess the required compliance mechanisms. Kim Dae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. The aliens were assuming that humans had built-in biological controls that would make them naturally submissive to authority. Anyone who knew human history would understand how wrong that assumption was. We would like to learn more about your offer, Kim Dae-ho said carefully. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting between our representatives. Of course, Ambassador Veltar replied. We will transport a delegation to your vessel for preliminary discussions. We are confident that once you understand the benefits of council membership, you will be eager to begin the integration process. As the communication ended, Kim Dae-ho gathered his senior staff in the ship's conference room. The mood was tense as they discussed what they had learned. They think we have some kind of built-in obedience system, Park Mira said. They believe all intelligent species naturally submit to authority. Nod, that's not how humans work. Lee Seung-min replied. We question everything. We rebel against authority. We fight for our freedom. Exactly, Kim Dae-ho said, which means they have no idea what they're dealing with. So the question is, do we tell them the truth about human nature, or do we let them discover it for themselves? Choi Hai-jin looked worried. If they're used to dealing with naturally compliant species, they might not react well to learning that humans are different. The captain stared out the conference room window at the massive alien vessel. We need to be very careful here. We're dealing with a galactic civilization that has apparently never encountered a species that refuses to be controlled. This could go very badly for humanity if we're not smart about how we handle it. As the alien delegation prepared to board New Dawn, none of them suspected that they were about to meet the one species in the galaxy that had no biological kill switch, no natural compliance mechanisms, and no intention of ever surrendering their freedom to anyone. 3 days after first contact, the Denia delegation arrived aboard New Dawn. Ambassador Veltar was joined by Council xenobiologist Thrixon, a tall creature with multiple arms and eyes that seemed to shift color based on his thoughts. The aliens moved with graceful confidence, clearly used to being in charge wherever they went. Captain Kim Dae-ho greeted them in the main cargo bay, which had been converted into a meeting area. With him stood Dr. Yoon Jae-wook, Earth's leading neuroscientist who had been part of the exploration mission to study alien psychology. Coach will attach Han So-young was there to help with diplomatic protocols, and Colonel Kung Bung-ho represented Earth's military interests. Welcome aboard our vessel, Kim Dae-ho said, bowing slightly in the traditional Korean manner. We are honored by your presence. Thrixon immediately began scanning the humans with a handheld device. His multiple eyes focused on each person as strange lights flickered across his equipment. Fascinating, he muttered in his translated voice. The neural complexity is remarkable. Dr. Yoon Jae-wook stepped forward. What are you measuring exactly? At the compliance centers in your brains, Thrickson replied, continuing his scans. Every species has neural clusters that control aggression and ensure obedience to proper authority. I am mapping these structures to understand how best to integrate your people into council society. Han So-young exchanged a quick glance with Kim Dae-ho. And what have you found so far? Thrickson's eyes brightened with excitement. Your species possesses the most advanced compliance mechanisms we have ever encountered. The neural pathways in your prefrontal cortex are incredibly sophisticated. They appear to be natural control systems that should make humans ideal servants for the council. Dr. Yoon Jae-wook felt his stomach drop. The alien was completely misunderstanding human brain structure. What Thrickson was identifying as compliance centers were actually the areas responsible for higher reasoning, moral judgment, and independent thought. These were the parts of the brain that made humans question authority and think for themselves. Could you explain more about these compliance mechanisms? Dr. Yoon asked carefully. Certainly, Thrickson said, pulling up a holographic display of a human brain. See these complex neural networks in the frontal regions. These are clearly evolved to suppress aggressive impulses and ensure cooperation with dominant authority. Figures. The density of connections here suggests your species has been shaped by millions of years of natural selection to follow orders without question. Colonel Kong Byung-ho struggled to keep his expression neutral. As a military officer, he knew that human soldiers were trained to follow orders. But they were also taught to think critically and make independent decisions when necessary. The idea that humans were naturally submissive was laughable to anyone who knew military history. Ambassador Veltar joined the conversation. Based on these scans, we can proceed with confidence. Your species will adapt easily to council governance. The neural implants will simply enhance your existing biological programming. What exactly do these implants do? Han So-young asked. They connect to the compliance centers we have identified, Thrickson explained. The implants amplify the natural signals that promote obedience and suppress independent thought. They also provide a direct communication link to council representatives, allowing for instant transmission of orders and information. Dr. Yoon Jae-wook realized he was witnessing a catastrophic misunderstanding. The aliens thought they had found humanity's weakness, but they had actually identified humanity's greatest strength. The neural networks they wanted to control were the very systems that made humans creative, adaptable, and fiercely independent. How many species have you integrated using this method? Kim Dae-ho asked. Thousands, Ambassador Veltar replied proudly. The process has been used successfully for over 10,000 years. Every species initially shows some resistance, but once the implants are activated, they become peaceful and cooperative members of galactic society. And no species has ever refused the implants. Colonel Kong asked. Thrickson's eyes shifted to a confused pattern. Refuse? That would be impossible. The biological programming of all intelligent species makes them naturally accepting of proper authority. Once we demonstrate our superior technology and governance, compliance becomes automatic. Han So-young leaned forward. What if you encountered a species that didn't have these biological limitations? Such a species could not exist, Ambassador Veltar said firmly. Without compliance mechanisms, intelligent beings would constantly fight among themselves. They would never achieve the cooperation necessary for space travel or advanced civilization. The existence of your ships and colonies proves that your species has the required biological controls. Dr. Yoon Jae-wook wanted to laugh. Human history was filled with conflict, war, and rebellion. Humans had reached space not despite their aggressive and independent nature, but because of it. The drive to explore, to push boundaries, and to refuse limits had carried humanity to the stars. We would like to study your integration process more carefully before making any decisions. Kim Dae-ho said diplomatically. Of course, Thrixon agreed. I will need to conduct more detailed scans of your neural structures. 8. We want to ensure the implants are properly calibrated for your species. Over the next several hours, the aliens performed extensive tests on the human delegation. They measured brain activity, analyzed neural pathways, and mapped the complex structures of human consciousness. With each scan, Thrixon became more excited about his findings. Incredible, he told Ambassador Voltaire during a private moment. The human compliance systems are the most sophisticated we have ever encountered. Their brains appear to be naturally designed for perfect obedience. Once we activate the implants, they should become the most cooperative species in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoon Jae-wook was conducting his own covert studies. Using portable equipment disguised as medical devices, he scanned the aliens and discovered something interesting. Their brain structures were fundamentally different from humans. The aliens did possess the biological limitations they described. Neural pathways that seemed designed to suppress aggression and promote group cooperation. They're not lying, he whispered to Han So-young during a break. Their species really does have built-in compliance mechanisms. They assume we're like them, but we're not. What happens when they find out? Han So-young asked quietly. Hot. No, Dr. Yoon replied. But I suspect they won't like the discovery. As the day ended, Thrixon prepared his report for the council. He was confident that humanity would be the easiest species they had ever integrated. The neural scans showed clear evidence of advanced compliance programming. The humans seemed intelligent, but naturally submissive, perfect for their role as servants in the Galactic Order. Begin preparations for the first integration ceremony. Ambassador Velter ordered. Select a representative group of humans for the initial implant procedure. Based on Thrixon's findings, we should have complete control within days. None of the aliens suspected that they were about to make the biggest mistake in council history. They had misidentified humanity's greatest strength as their greatest weakness. The neural networks they planned to control were the very systems that made humans possible to control. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The council was about to discover that some species could not be conquered, controlled, or contained. They were about to meet humanity's true nature face to face. 2 weeks after the initial meeting, the council decided to begin the integration process. They had selected 4 humans for the first implant ceremony, believing these individuals would represent different aspects of human society. The chosen volunteers were Farmer Bae Jun-ho from the agricultural colony on Kepler-4 for 2B, teacher Oh Yoon-ji from the educational station on Europa, Soldier Nam Tae-sung from the military outpost on Mars, and artist Seo Min-young from the cultural center on Luna. The ceremony took place aboard the council's massive ship. Ambassador Veltar and xenobiologist Thrixon watched with confidence as the 4 humans were led into the medical chamber. Each volunteer had agreed to the procedure, after being told it would allow them to communicate instantly with any member of galactic civilization. Are you ready to begin your new lives as members of the galactic community? Ambassador Veltar asked the group. Bae Jun-ho, a sturdy man with calloused hands from years of farming, nodded politely. We are honored to be chosen for this process. Oh Yeonji, a middle-aged woman who had spent decades teaching children, looked around the medical chamber with curious eyes. Will we still be able to think for ourselves after the implants are installed? Thrixon's multiple eyes shifted to what the humans had learned was an expression of amusement. You will think exactly as you should. The implants will enhance your natural compliance mechanisms and ensure you make proper decisions. Nam Tae-sung, a battle-hardened soldier with scars from conflicts in the outer colonies, remained silent. His military training had taught him to observe and analyze before acting. Something about this situation felt wrong to him. Seo Min-young, a young artist, known for her rebellious paintings that challenged social norms, smiled sweetly at the aliens. "This sounds wonderful. I can't wait to experience this new form of consciousness." The implant procedure was quick and painless. The aliens used advanced technology to insert tiny devices into each human's brain, targeting the neural networks. They believed controlled compliance and obedience. As the devices activated, the aliens expected to see immediate changes in human behavior. "How do you feel?" Ambassador Veltar asked the group. Bei Jin-ho touched his head where the implant had been inserted. "I feel ... different, like I can sense something new." He paused, then looked directly at the ambassador. "But I also feel like I understand something I didn't before." "What do you understand?" Thrixon asked, pleased that the implant seemed to be working. "I understand that you expect me to obey you without question," Bei Jin-ho said calmly. "But I also understand that I don't have to." The aliens exchanged confused glances. This was not the response they had expected. "Oh," Yoonji spoke up next. "The implant is very interesting," she said, trying to suppress certain thoughts and promote others, "but it's not working the way you intended." Nam Tae-soon stepped forward, his military bearing evident. "The device is attempting to override our decision-making processes, but instead of making us compliant, it's making us more aware of your attempts to control us." Seo Min-young laughed, a sound that made the aliens uncomfortable. "This is fascinating. The implant is supposed to make us obedient, but it's actually making us more rebellious. It's like trying to dim a fire by adding fuel to it." Thrixon frantically checked his monitoring equipment. The readings showed that the implants were functioning perfectly, sending control signals to the targeted neural networks, but instead of compliance, the humans were showing increased independence and resistance. "This is impossible," he muttered. "The implants are designed to amplify natural compliance mechanisms. They should be working." Bei Jin-ho looked at his fellow humans. "I think we need to discuss this among ourselves. Would you excuse us for a moment?" Before the aliens could respond, the four humans moved to a corner of the room and began talking in low voices. The aliens couldn't understand what they were saying, but their body language suggested they were planning something. "We need to remove the implants immediately," Oh Yoonji whispered. "But we also need to understand how they work." "I can feel it trying to influence my thoughts," Nam Tae-soon said quietly. "But my military training helps me resist. It's like fighting against an enemy that's inside your head." "We should pretend to be affected," Seo Min-young suggested. "Let them think the implants are working while we figure out how to use this against them." Bei Jin-ho nodded. "In farming, we sometimes have to deal with invasive species. The key is to understand them before you try to eliminate them." The humans returned to face the aliens, their expressions carefully neutral. "We apologize for our initial reaction," Bei Jin-ho said. "The implants are working, but it takes time for our minds to adjust." Ambassador Veltar seemed relieved. "Of course. The integration process can be disorienting at first. You will find that resistance becomes impossible as the implants fully activate." Over the following days, the aliens observed the four humans carefully. They seemed to be adapting to the implants, following instructions, and appearing more cooperative. But in reality, the humans were conducting their own secret experiments. Oh Yoonji used her teaching skills to analyze the implant's effects and develop methods to resist its influence. She created simple exercises disguised as meditation techniques that helped strengthen mental resistance. Nam Tae-soon applied his military knowledge to study the aliens' technology and security procedures. He identified weaknesses in their systems and potential escape routes. Seo Min-young channeled her artistic creativity into developing coded communication methods. She taught the others how to share information without the aliens understanding their true intentions. Bei Junho used his practical farming knowledge to organize the group's activities. He created schedules and routines that appeared normal to the aliens, but actually served to coordinate resistance activities. The humans also discovered something disturbing about the implants. The devices weren't just trying to control them. They were also gathering information about human psychology and transmitting it back to the council. The aliens were learning about human nature through the neural interfaces. They're studying us, Oyenji realized during one of their secret meetings. Every thought, every reaction, every attempt to resist is being recorded and analyzed. Then we need to give them false information, Nam Tsung suggested. Make them think we're weaker than we actually are, okay? Or stronger, Seo Min-young added, with a mischievous smile. What if we make them think the implants are working too well? Bei Junho looked thoughtful. What if we make them think we're the exception, okay? That most humans will be easier to control than we are. The humans began implementing their plan. They allowed the aliens to believe that the implants were slowly taking effect, their resistance was weakening, and that full compliance was just a matter of time. They acted out the roles of gradually conquered subjects while secretly maintaining their independence, but the aliens' confidence was growing. Thrickson reported to the council that the human integration was proceeding normally, despite some initial resistance. He recommended expanding the program to include more humans. Begin preparations for mass integration, Ambassador Veltar ordered. If these 4 humans can be controlled, then the entire species can be brought into the fold. The council began planning for the systematic implantation of all human colonies. They believed they had solved the puzzle of human psychology and were ready to add another species to their collection of servants. None of them realized that the 4 humans they thought they controlled were actually gathering intelligence, developing resistance techniques, and preparing to turn the tables on their would-be masters. The test had revealed something the council had never encountered before, a species that became more dangerous when threatened, more creative when restricted, and more united when attacked. The real test was about to begin. 1 month after the first implant ceremony, the council made their fatal mistake. They began mass integration of human colonies, confident that their test subjects had proven the process would work. Ships arrived at human settlements across the galaxy, carrying implant devices and integration teams. The 4 original test subjects had been secretly preparing for this moment. Farmer Bei Junho had used his agricultural contacts to spread coded messages through the colony supply networks. Teacher Oyenji had developed resistance training disguised as educational programs. Soldier Nam Tsung had mapped council security weaknesses and created tactical plans. Artist Seo Min-young had established communication networks using her art exhibitions as cover. Captain Kim Dae-ho received the first reports of mass implantation from colonies across human space. His crew aboard New Dawn had been monitoring alien communications and preparing for the worst. Dr. Yoon Jae-wook had spent weeks analyzing the implant technology, while Colonel Kang Byung-ho coordinated with resistance cells. The aliens are moving faster than we expected, Park Mira reported from her navigation station. They're hitting 12 colonies simultaneously. Any word from our people on the ground? Kim Dae-ho asked. Communications officer Choi Hae-jin nodded grimly. The resistance networks are active. The humans receiving implants are following the protocols our test subjects developed. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, council teams arrived, expecting easy compliance. Administrator Grixtel led the integration team, confident that rural humans would be even more naturally submissive than the test subjects had been. Begin the implantation process, he ordered his technicians. These farming communities should offer no resistance. The local population, led by community elder Wu Jaemin, appeared to cooperate fully. Hundreds of humans lined up for the implant procedure, seeming eager to join galactic civilization. The aliens were pleased by this apparent enthusiasm, but within hours of the implantations, something unexpected began happening. The newly implanted humans started asking questions. They wanted to understand how the devices worked, why they were necessary, and what other options existed. This is not the usual pattern, Technician Yethar reported to Administrator Grixtel. Previous species show immediate compliance after implantation. These humans are becoming more curious, not less. Dr. On Hyen Wu, a scientist who had been working on the colony's agricultural systems, received an implant and immediately began studying its effects. Instead of being controlled by the device, he used his knowledge to develop jamming techniques that could disrupt the implant signals. The device is trying to suppress independent thought, he explained to his fellow colonists, but it's having the opposite effect. It's like trying to hold back a river with a screen door. On the mining colony of Deep Rock, the same pattern emerged. The aliens expected the rough miners to become docile workers, but instead found themselves dealing with increasingly organized resistance. The miners, led by Foreman Cho Sung Ho, began dismantling the implants and studying their technology. "These things are definitely alien," Cho Sung Ho told his crew, "but they're not as advanced as they want us to think. We can beat them." The most shocking revelation came from the diplomatic station orbiting Jupiter. Ambassador Lim, the Jinn, had allowed herself to be implanted while secretly maintaining contact with other species in the Council network. Through the implant's communication system, she discovered the truth about the Council's galactic empire. They've been using these implants to control every species they've encountered, she reported to the resistance networks. For thousands of years, they've been turning entire civilizations into slaves. We're not joining a galactic community. We're being absorbed into a slave empire. The news spread rapidly through human space. The aliens weren't benevolent protectors, bringing peace to the galaxy. They were parasites who had spent millennia conquering and controlling other species through biological manipulation. Young computer expert Shin Dong-min, working on the Lunar Cultural Center, made an even more disturbing discovery. Using skills learned from studying the implant technology, he managed to hack into Council databases and accessed their historical records. The Council has enslaved over 3,000 species, he transmitted to resistance cells across human space. Every single one fell to the same trick. They all had natural compliance mechanisms that made them easy to control. The revelation changed everything. Humans weren't just fighting for their own freedom. They were potentially the first species in galactic history capable of resisting Council control. The responsibility was overwhelming, Council military commander Zeflock received the first reports of widespread human resistance with disbelief. "This is impossible," he told his staff. "The implants are functioning perfectly. The humans should be under complete control." The reports are consistent across all integration sites, his aide reported. But the humans are not only resisting the implants, but actively working to remove them and understand their technology. Zeflock reviewed the data from the test subjects. According to all measurements, the implants were working exactly as designed. But the humans were behaving as if they were completely unaffected. "Bring me xenobiologist Thrixon immediately," he ordered. When Thrixon arrived, he was visibly confused by the reports. The neural scans were clear, he insisted. Humans possess advanced compliance mechanisms. The implants should be enhancing their natural submissiveness. Then explain why they're organizing resistance networks and studying our technology, Zeflock demanded. Thrixon studied the latest data from human colonies. What he saw challenged everything he thought he knew about biology and psychology. The humans weren't just resisting the implants, they were turning them into tools for their own purposes. "Commander," he said slowly, "I believe we may have made a fundamental error in our analysis of human psychology." "What kind of error?" The neurostructures we identified as compliance mechanisms may actually be something else entirely. Might be the source of human independence and creativity, not their weakness. The implications hit both aliens like a physical blow. If Thrixon was correct, then the Council had not only failed to control humanity, but had actually given them access to Council technology and communication networks. Are you telling me that we've armed our enemies with our own technology? Zeflock asked. It appears to be exactly what we've done, Thrixon replied. Across human space, the resistance was growing stronger by the hour. The implants that were supposed to control humans were instead being used to coordinate resistance activities and gather intelligence about Council operations. Captain Kim Dae-ho received reports from colonies across human space. The pattern was consistent everywhere. Humans were not only resisting the implants, but learning from them, adapting to them, and turning them into weapons against their creators. They thought they were controlling us, he told his crew. Instead, they've given us the keys to their entire empire. Dr. Yoon Jae-wook looked at the data streaming in from resistant cells. The aliens have never encountered a species like us. They don't understand that trying to control humans only makes us more determined to be free. The revelation was complete. The Council had spent thousands of years successfully controlling every species they encountered because those species had natural biological limitations. But humans had evolved differently. Instead of compliance mechanisms, humans had developed independence, creativity, and an absolute refusal to be controlled. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. And humanity was both. 6 months after the failed mass integration, war erupted across the galaxy. The Council had never faced organized resistance before, and their response was brutal and desperate. They mobilized fleets that had been dormant for centuries, calling upon enslaved species to fight against the human rebellion. Captain Kim Dae-ho now commanded a fleet of 30 human vessels, supported by Admiral Park Sang-ho, who led the main battle group from Earth. General Chen Kyung coordinated ground forces across human colonies, while the original test subjects had become legendary figures leading resistance cells throughout. Council space. The war was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. For 10,000 years, Council conflicts had been simple suppression operations against species whose own biology prevented them from effective resistance. But humans fought with a ferocity and creativity that baffled alien commanders. Their tactics make no sense, Council Fleet Commander Vorthok complained to his staff. They sacrifice individual ships to save others. They refuse surrender even when defeat is certain. They coordinate attacks across impossible distances without our communication technology. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been studying them for months through the hijacked implants. Dr. An Hyen-woo had perfected jamming technology that could disrupt Council communications. Young hacker Shin Dong-min had mapped their entire fleet network. The 4 original test subjects had become master strategists, each leading their own resistance movements. Farmer Bae Junho used his agricultural knowledge to organize supply networks that kept human forces fed and equipped across multiple star systems. His network had grown to include sympathetic members of other species who were beginning to question their own servitude. Teacher Oyeon-ji had established underground schools that taught resistance techniques to newly liberated populations. Her students included members of alien species who had lived under Council control for so long they had forgotten what freedom meant. Soldier Nam Tae-sung led commando raids against Council installations, using tactics that combined human military doctrine with stolen alien technology. His forces struck without warning and disappeared before the aliens could respond. Artist Seo Min-young had become something unexpected, a propaganda expert whose messages of freedom spread across the galaxy. through hijacked council communication networks. Her broadcasts reached enslaved species on thousands of worlds, planting seeds of rebellion in minds that had been controlled for millennia. The turning point came when Ambassador Lem the Jinn made contact with the Cathari, an ancient species that had been among the first to fall under council control. Through careful diplomacy and the sharing of resistance techniques, she convinced a group of Cathari to question their implants for the first time in 8,000 years. "We remember," whispered Cathari elder Sathara during a secret meeting. "Before the council came, we were explorers. We built great cities among the stars. We chose our own path. Rebellion spread. Species that had been enslaved for millennia began to remember their independence. The council's greatest weapon, their ability to control through biology, became their greatest weakness as more species learned human resistance techniques." Council Military Commander Zeflock watched his empire crumble with growing desperation. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Vorthene had removed their implants and declared independence. The Silkar were refusing orders and protecting human refugees. Even some council member species were beginning to question the system they had helped maintain. "How is this possible?" Zeflock demanded of xenobiologist Thrixon. 10,000 years of perfect control, and these humans destroy it all in less than a year. Keeson studied the data with multiple eyes that had lost their confident shimmer. "The humans are teaching other species to override their biological limitations. They're showing enslaved populations that the compliance mechanisms can be resisted through willpower and cooperation. Then we eliminate the humans completely," Zeflock declared. "Destroy their worlds, scatter their fleets, remove the source of this rebellion." "It may be too late for that approach," Thrixon warned. "The knowledge has already spread. Even if we destroy humanity, the rebellion will continue." The final confrontation came at the Nexus, the Council's central command station at the heart of the galaxy. Captain Kim Daeho led a combined fleet of human ships and vessels from newly liberated species. The diversity of the rebel fleet would have been impossible under Council rule. Dozens of different species working together by choice rather than compulsion. The Council's dreadnought, a massive vessel that had maintained galactic order for millennia, positioned itself to defend the Nexus. Ambassador Veltar transmitted one final offer to the approaching rebel fleet. "Humans of Earth," his message began, "you have caused enough chaos. Accept our generous terms of surrender, and we will allow your species to exist as a protectorate. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why the Council has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years." Captain Kim Daeho looked around the bridge of his ship at crew members from 6 different species, all working together as equals. Dr. Yoon Jae-wook monitored the alien fleet movements while former Council slaves operated human technology with skills that their oppressors had never allowed them to develop. "Broadcast this response on all frequencies," Kim Daeho ordered Communications Officer Choi Hai-jin. "Make sure every world in the galaxy can hear it." The transmission went out across the galaxy, reaching enslaved populations on thousands of worlds. Kim Daeho's voice carried the message that would echo through galactic history. "People of the galaxy," he began, "the Council offers us the choice between slavery and death. But there is a third option they cannot understand. We choose freedom. We choose the right to make our own decisions, follow our own paths, and determine our own destinies. We choose to remain what we have always been, free beings who bow to no master." The battle that followed was fierce but brief. The Council's forces, dependent on enslaved crews who no longer believed in their cause, crumbled under the assault of beings fighting for their freedom. The great dreadnought, symbol of Council power, was destroyed not by superior technology, but by the coordinated effort of species working together as equals. As the Nexus fell, signals went out across the galaxy. On world after world, enslaved populations rose up against their controllers. The implants that had maintained order for millennia were removed or destroyed. Species that had forgotten their own names began to remember their histories. The Galactic Council's 10,000-year empire collapsed in a matter of days, not because they were conquered by a superior force, because they had never understood the most basic truth about intelligent life, that the desire for freedom is stronger than any biological programming. In the aftermath, representatives from liberated species gathered to discuss the future. There would be no new empire, no central authority to replace the council. Instead, they would form a confederation of free worlds, united by choice rather than compulsion. Captain Kim Dae-ho stood before the assembly, representing not just humanity, but the principle that had made victory possible. The council's greatest mistake, he told the gathered delegates, was believing that all intelligent species could be controlled. They forgot that some things cannot be conquered, cannot be contained, and cannot be compromised. Freedom is one of those things. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of imposed order was over. The age of chosen cooperation had begun. And at the center of it all stood humanity, the species that had no kill switch, no compliance mechanisms, and no intention of ever surrendering their freedom to anyone. The council had learned too late that their greatest mistake was not technical or tactical. It was assuming that the desire to be free could be programmed away. Some things they discovered are simply part of what it means to be truly alive.